Imagine living in a small, quiet town where everyone knows everyone else. You go about your day to day life confident that your secrets are safe, hidden beneath the surface. Then one day, a letter appears. It's handwritten, the words carefully formed, but the message is anything but friendly. The writer knows something about you, and they are threatening to expose you. Circleville, Ohio was a town that in 1976 became ground zero for one of the most chilling unsolved mysteries in American history, the Circleville Letters. It all began with a letter addressed to Gordon Massey, the local school superintendent. The letter accused him of having an affair with a married woman, a school bus driver named Mary Gillespie. The letter writer, whoever they were, demanded that Gordon confess his sins to the school board. The letter was ominous, almost as if it was written by someone watching the town from the shadows. But this wasn't just one angry letter. The next day, the school board received another letter, informing them of the supposed affair. It wasn't long before Mary Gillespie, the bus driver at the center of the scandal, received a letter of her own. The message, it was clear. Someone was watching her. Mary was stunned. The letter didn't just accuse her of having an affair, it claimed the writer had been observing her for some time. They knew intimate details of her life, details that no stranger should know. The letter closed with a chilling warning. Everyone concerned has been notified and everything will be over soon. Mary did the only thing she could think of. She showed the letter to her husband, Ron. She swore to him that the accusations were false, and Ron believed her. They decided to keep quiet about the letter, hoping the harassment would stop, but it didn't. Soon after, Ron received his own letter. The anonymous writer demanded that Ron expose Mary's affair to the school board or suffer the consequences. The writer even went as far as to threaten Ron's life, promising that if he didn't act, he would be killed. Weeks passed and the letters kept coming. The pressure on the Gillespies mounted as their private lives became a public spectacle. The mysterious writer even started putting up signs along Mary's bus route, making lewd accusations about their young daughter. Mary thought she had a suspect. There was a fellow bus driver, David Longberry, who had made advances towards her, and when she rejected him, he wasn't happy about it. She thought, could David be this cruel? Could he be the one stalking them, threatening their lives? Mary, Ron, and their family decided to act. They teamed up with Ron's sister Karen and her husband, Paul Fresher. Together, they wrote a letter of their own addressed to David, confronting him directly. And for a brief moment, it seemed like they'd put an end to it. The letter stopped. But it was only the calm before the storm. On a warm August night in 1977, Ron received a phone call at home. He was furious as soon as he hung up the phone. He grabbed his gun, told his daughter that the call was from the letter writer, and hurried out of the house. Moments later, he was speeding down the road in his truck into the night. Hours passed, and Ron never came home. At 10:35 p.m., his truck was found smashed into a tree. Inside, Ron's lifeless body was slumped over the seat. He had died from the impact. His blood alcohol level was 1.5 times the legal limit. But that didn't make sense to anyone who knew Ron. He wasn't much of a drinker. His gun was found under his body and strangely one round had been fired. But there was no evidence of who or what he had shot at. Mary believed that Ron had uncovered the letter writer's identity and that's why he was dead. She thought it was a murder disguised as an accident. His brother-in-law, Paul Fresher, was certain of it. But despite the suspicions swirling around the town, the sheriff ruled Ron's death as an accident. Drunk driving, they said, case closed. But not for the mysterious writer. After Ron's death, the letters ramped up. More threats, more accusations. They spread beyond Mary and her family. Now everyone in Circleville was a target. It seemed like the writer knew things about people that no outsider could ever know. And still, no one could figure out who it was. Fast forward to 1983. Mary was still working as a bus driver, still being harassed. One day, while driving her route, she noticed an obscene sign about her daughter. Furious, she pulled over to tear it down. But something was off. The sign was attached to a box, and when she opened it, she found a gun inside. It was a booby trap. Someone had set it up to fire the gun when the sign was removed. For whatever reason, it didn't work that day, and Mary's life was spared. But the discovery gave the police their first real lead in years. The gun belonged to Paul Fresher, Ron's brother-in-law. Paul swore he had nothing to do with it. He said the gun had gone missing weeks before, but without any proof, his story didn't hold up. He was arrested and eventually convicted of attempted murder, but not for sending the letters, just for the trap. The people thought this would be the end of the story. The culprit caught, the letters stopped. But the letters didn't stop. Even with Paul in prison, the letters kept coming. Hundreds of them sent to people all over Ohio, including Paul himself. The prison took every precaution to ensure he couldn't send any letters, but they still appeared, postmarked from Columbus. Who was still sending them, and how? Paul was in solitary confinement, strip searched regularly with no access to pen or paper. Yet the writer remained active. The mystery deepened. Paul was released on parole in 1994, maintaining his innocence until his death in 2012. He swore he never sent a single letter, and the real culprit had framed him. For some, Paul's release seemed to mark the end of the saga. No more letters were sent after 1994, but questions lingered. Who had written the Circleville Letters? Was it one person or multiple? Even now, all these years later, no one has come forward to confess. The town of Circleville is still haunted by the letters that exposed its darkest secrets, and the mystery remains unsolved. A tangled web of lies, betrayals, and threats that seem to know no bounds. And as time passes, it's becoming more and more likely that we may never know the truth.